About half of the human body's weight is from hundreds of muscles that are responsible for moving structures and internal organs. Muscle tissue throughout the body facilitates body functions by changing shape and length. These contractions cause movements that facilitate body functions. Skeletal muscles move the body by responding to signals from the nervous system. Smooth muscles in many organs throughout the body respond to hormones and involuntary signals from the nervous system. They contract and relax to contain substances and move substances through the body. Cardiac muscle responds to involuntary signals from its own conduction system. Heartbeats are the heart muscle contractions that pump blood.
Muscular, nervous, and skeletal systems interact to produce movement. Messages travel through the nervous system to the skeletal muscles that attach to bones throughout the body. The fibrous appearance of skeletal muscles is created by the arrangement of proteins inside the cells that form muscle tissue. Motor neurons of the nervous system connect with these skeletal muscles. Movement occurs through a series of steps. Impulses from the nervous system reach the neuromuscular junction. The neuron releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. It binds to receptors on the muscle and begins a chemical reaction within its fibers. The muscle filaments slide across each other and the muscle shortens or contracts. This action produces movement. To produce movement in the body, the muscular, nervous, and skeletal systems interact in a process called muscle contraction. Muscle contraction begins when the nervous system generates a signal. A motor neuron conducts an action potential to its link with a muscle fiber. At the neuromuscular junction, a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine is released. This chemical binds to receptors on the muscle fiber. Acetylcholine receptors are chemically gated ion channels, and when acetylcholine binds, they open, allowing influx of sodium ions into the muscle fiber. This stimulates the sarcolemma and generates another action potential that travels through tiny folds known as transverse tubules. The action potential reaches myofibrils within the muscle fiber. Surrounding the myofibrils are membranous sacs called the sarcoplasmic reticulum. The arrival of the action potential triggers the release of calcium ions stored in the sarcoplasmic reticulum. They diffuse into the muscle fiber, and the next phase of muscle contraction begins. When an action potential travels to a muscle fiber, a series of steps begin within the fiber that result in contraction. Muscle fibers are organized into units called sarcomeres that contain two types of filaments. Thick filaments consist of myosin. Thin filaments consist of actin. Eventually, these two filaments will come together, creating a cross bridge. In response to an action potential, the sarcoplasmic reticulum within a muscle fiber releases calcium ions. These ions bind to a protein complex, causing it to shift and expose the myosin binding sites. The myosin head then binds to actin and the cross bridge is established. In the next step, ADP and phosphate are released. Their energy powers the movement of the myosin head. This step is called the power stroke. Actin moves toward the center of the sarcomere. ATP then binds again to myosin and it detaches from actin. ATP breaks down into ADP and phosphate, and the myosin head cocks back. Myosin heads continue to deactivate and reactivate. This causes the myosin filaments to pull together and slide across one another, contracting the muscle.
smooth muscle tissue is in the walls of hollow organs throughout the body. The tissue contracts and relaxes to contain substances and move substances through the body. Smooth muscle contractions are involuntary actions managed by impulses that travel through the autonomic nervous system to the smooth muscle tissue. The arrangement of cells in smooth muscle tissue provides for contraction and relaxation with great elasticity. The smooth muscle in the digestive tract contracts and relaxes in peristaltic waves that move swallowed food and nutrients from the mouth through the stomach and the intestines. Artery walls include smooth muscle that relaxes and contracts as pressure changes move changing volumes of blood through the vessel. The smooth muscle of the bladder and uterus allow for great elasticity and contraction of those organs. Cardiac muscle, which is found only in the heart wall, contracts constantly to pump blood throughout the body. The heart wall is composed of 3 layers. A thin layer called the epicardium, or visceral pericardium, forms the outermost part of the heart wall. This layer adheres the heart to the pericardium, a sac of tissue that protects the heart from friction as it beats. Beneath the epicardium lies the thick cardiac muscle of the myocardium. The myocardium is responsible for the heart's pumping action, making powerful continuous contractions possible. This striated tissue contracts involuntarily in response to signals from the heart's own conduction system. Beneath the myocardium lies the endocardium, which forms the innermost layer of the heart wall. The endocardium lines the heart's internal structures and is continuous with the lining of blood vessels that attach to the heart. Together, these 3 layers of the heart wall aid contraction and relaxation as the heart beats.
The skeleton often involves pairs of muscles that perform opposing actions, like flexing and extending or bending and straightening. Muscles involved in these paired actions are categorized as agonists and antagonists. A muscle that contracts to generate the main force of an action is called the prime mover, or the agonist for that action. Muscles that perform the paired and opposing action are called the antagonists. The agonists in elbow flexion are the muscles that contract to bring the elbow joint into a flexed position. The antagonists are the muscles that perform the opposite action, elbow extension. When the action of elbow extension occurs, the roles switch. The triceps brachii is now the agonist and contracts to extend the limb, while the biceps brachii muscle is relaxed and becomes the antagonist. Muscle interactions throughout body regions involve paired actions. These include flexion and extension, elevation and depression, and pronation and supination.